Guys, I have bad news. I just recorded this whole video without my mic plugged in. The whole thing. It was like 40 minutes. And it's my first video essay, like my first video back to YouTube. And I filmed this. That was my second time. This is now my third time. But we're in a learning curve and it's fine. Anyway, we're going to cut out the fluff because I can't do it again. My name's Alexi. If you're following me, it's because I used to make ASMR videos. That's probably why you're subscribed. I wanted to really quick talk about why I'm not doing that. If you don't care, I'm going to leave a timestamp below and you can just get to the meat and potatoes of the video. When I lived in Florida, I was in a bad relationship. I couldn't find a job I liked. I was very clearly not supposed to be in Florida. ASMR was like therapy for me because I couldn't afford therapy. It was such a good way for me to like regulate my nervous system. I'm in a very different place now. Let me tell you, okay? I'm engaged to the love of my life. We live in our house that we own. I live back in Pennsylvania with all my friends and family. I'm in a much better space. And I still love ASMR, but my heart is not in it the same way. And I think that you deserve that. As an ASMR consumer, I do believe that. But I still want to make videos and content. So if you would like to stay subscribed, I would love that. I really would. I still love a good audio quality, which is why I'm re-recording this. Because my mic wasn't on. And if I listen to a video essay, I want a nice crispy audio. Like that's so important to me. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about media literacy and why it's so dangerous and why it's a hot button topic and why nobody ever explains what media literacy is or the history of media literacy. I just hear it all the time on social media. People saying like, oh, you're media illiterate as an insult, which is like not an insult. It's a systematic issue. But also people don't know what media literacy is. So I've compiled my own research and lived experiences to talk about this subject that I care so deeply about. If you see me looking down, I'm probably going to read out of it, to be quite honest with you, because it's just easier for me and I wrote down all my thoughts already. First, I wanted to talk about why I'm uniquely qualified to talk about this, which you don't need to be qualified to talk about anything on the internet, which is part of the problem. But I want to talk about why I want to talk about this subject. Hi, I'm Alexi. I have a bachelor's of science in digital media technology with a minor in philosophy. So philosophizing over digital media is what I was trained for at a collegiate level. Number two, I work in the digital space. I've worked as a digital marketing professional since 2019, specifically on social media. Number three, I do this for fun. I have 20,000 followers on TikTok. Obviously, I have this YouTube channel. I've been on every form of social media since it came out. I've been chronically online my whole life. So those things make me uniquely qualified to talk about this. With that being said, though, I am not an expert, okay? If you want to know more about this, you have to go do more research, which, by the way, spoiler alert, is the bottom line of media literacy. You cannot just take my word for it. Okay, let's begin. In order to understand media literacy in relation to social media and why it's become an even bigger issue than it has before, we have to understand why social media is so different from all other forms of media we've had in the past, starting with written media. When we found the Kish tablet in 3500 BC, that was the first form of written media we've ever had. Written media, by the way, is different than print media, like books and newspapers. Written media is one piece of written material, like on the Kish tablet, think hieroglyphics. And before print media became a thing, writing became more popularized for note-keeping, record-keeping, all those things. Fun fact, Socrates was actually very worried about this, and he thought because we were writing everything down, that we were going to forget everything, and that our brains were going to just die, which I think is such a valid concern for him. And now we know if you write something down, you're actually more likely to remember it because of that like world to brain connection that you're doing. But I think that was a totally valid concern, and I think he's a very smart man. I don't agree with everything about him, by the way. Remember, I'm a philosophy minor. I know him, okay? But that was, I think, a good point for him to bring up. I'd probably be worried about that too. Next, we have print media. This is newspaper and books. This is written media, mass communicated to people. So like writing something down on paper, printing it to a book, giving it to a group of people. Same with newspaper. Then we have broadcasting, which is TV, radio. We move to cinema, which is long form broadcasting, which is movies and documentaries. And then we get to the digital age, which is social media. And there's something different about social media versus every other form of media. And I want you to think what it is. Give yourself a second. What could be different about social media that we didn't have with every other form of media? I'm going to tell you. That was forum-based communication. That means that the consumers of the content and the media you're getting have as many eyes on them as the media piece itself through comments, okay? We've never had real-time communication like that before through media. You used to be able to have a book club and talk about your book, or you could have your own column in the newspaper, but Gen Pop or the general population was never able to get millions and billions of eyes on them right under the same media piece. So the media piece is getting the same amount of attention as random people on the internet. Can you think about why that might be dangerous? I can. The general population is illiterate. We're having an illiteracy crisis, specifically in the United States. Yeah, people don't know how to read. And I'm not even, if that's you, I'm so serious. That's a systematic issue. That's not a character flaw. That's like a problem with the way that we are teaching children. And you don't need to be literate to consume social media, especially something like TikTok, which is where I'm going to focus a lot of this on. What the issue, though, is because you can't read and you didn't grow up reading and you're not an active reader, you have a hard time differentiating nuance or reading between the lines or understanding something that isn't written right out in front of you. That's what reading does. It trains your brain to understand connections and nuances. And when you don't know how to do that, you can't do that even though you can scroll on TikTok. And that's where a lot of this problem comes into play. Furthermore, let's talk about mass communication and why mass communication used to be a very reliable means for information. Because think about it, if you're an author, you're spending time, money, and there's a team of people behind you rooting for your success. In fact, making sure that you have success because your reputation lies on it and their reputation lies on it, and you spend a lot of money to get your book out into the world. Now, if you want millions of people to see what you're doing or hear you, it doesn't take any money. TikTok is free. It doesn't take any time. You can start your camera and say whatever you want. And there are very little consequences for saying the wrong thing or leading people in the wrong direction or not being an expert in something. In fact, most people don't expect you to be an expert in something because you're just some guy on the internet, but they're going to sit there and they're going to listen to you. Now, when I talk about the general population doing that, I'm not talking about influencers. Let me make myself clear. Influencers, this is their job. I'm talking about a random man on the internet that talks about politics that doesn't know what he's talking about. Of course, there are instances where people can find where these people work and live and get them in trouble. But for the most part, if you start to get canceled as Gen Pop or a random person, or even if you have 10,000 followers on TikTok, you can just delete your account. No one knows anything about you. There are almost no consequences for this form of mass communication, and that was not necessarily a thing before. If your work was out in the world, if you were a director, an actor, an author, you wrote publications for a newspaper, your name is tied to that. So I would like to ask you, watching this video, does that make accessibility dangerous? And I don't have an answer for you because that is a very controversial subject. Do we want to censor people? Would it make disinformation less likely? I don't know. That's like a huge controversial topic that I do think everybody needs to think a little bit more about. Giving the general population this amount of attention is like giving a little kid a tool from your garage, a very dangerous tool. And you're like, all right, go ahead, go build me something. There's no safety on. They can hurt them. They can hurt somebody else. It needs to be treated the same way, in my opinion. And again, I'm not saying we need to censor people. I just think it's something we have to consider. And I don't have all the answers. I'm just a girl. And again, I'm not an expert on the subject. I'm just trying to bring some attention to the subject so we can think about it together. Because I think we're a lot more likely to get change done, made, and take strides together than we are individually. I read an article about this subject that I'm going to link below that I found very insightful. It is called "What is Media Literacy and How Can You Increase Your Own" by Carolina Kiuchi. I don't know. I'm going to link it. I really liked her work. And she even named some people she gets her media from that she knows, checks their sources, all of that good stuff. I highly recommend that you guys read it. Now, what's really scary is the concern for media literacy isn't new. This has been an issue for a very long time. So let's put on our critical thinking cap and wonder why, if this has been a concern since the early 1900s, by the way, why haven't there been any changes? Who would want to keep us media illiterate and why? Okay, listen to this. The Institute for Propaganda Analysis was formed in 1937 and was closed in 1942. Propaganda analysis. The first congressional hearing on media violence took place in 1952. So this has been an issue for a very long time. And you want to know the scariest part? According to the policy report, only 36% of United States have MLE, or media literacy education laws. But 84% of adults think that we should have them. 84% of adults think that we need more media literacy training, and we're not getting it. And why? Who do you think does not want us to have media literacy training? This is why this is such a big issue. Like, that hits the nail right on the head. This doesn't seem like such a, I mean, like, the kids would be like, oh, it's a non-issue. They say that all the time, which bothers me because everything's an issue to me. I'm like so dramatic. But this is really an issue. Like, we are being fed the wrong information. Maybe not intentionally, maybe intentionally, but even unintentionally, nobody's stepping in and being like, hey, let's figure this out. Let's make sure that this doesn't happen, because there's a way to do it. We've been to the moon. I'm just saying, another issue about media literacy is that we are rotting our brains, essentially, not only from short form content, which I'm not going to get into. You can look into that on your own if you want to, but we're going to talk about politics, for instance, on social media. Our brains love small, digestible, bite-sized pieces of information. It feels good. Our brains feel satiated. And then because we watch a 45-second video and we feel informed, we went through the comments, okay? We scroll, we get another little bite-sized piece of information. Now our brains are overwhelmed. That's science. When we scroll like that, it overwhelms our brain. But if we're not going out of our way to really look into the topics that are being discussed in the content we're consuming, now we're ignorant and overwhelmed. And that's a very dangerous combination to be. I'm not even blaming anybody. It's very overwhelming to be on the internet, but the chances of us getting unoverwhelmed isn't by consuming more content and just thinking we know what's going on, because now we're loud and wrong and overwhelmed and angry and stressed out. You might be thinking, Lex, I don't have time to research all of these political issues in depth and detail. I have kids, I have a job. I know. I'm not saying I have the solution. I'm just saying that we can't continue to do what we're doing. I agree with you that it's hard to fix, and I don't know how we're going to fix it. But you can't just keep getting bite-sized pieces of information, especially on a feed that is curated to you and your opinions. Let's remember that, like, the TikTok algorithm is a science. You're getting fed information that you want to hear. Or maybe you don't want to hear, but that satiated part of you that wanted to know more. Or from people that have opinions like you. Now, we're stressed out, overwhelmed, ignorant, and getting information from one group of people that to us and in our worldview look like it's everybody. Well, I got 200 videos today about this, and everybody feels the same way. You got 200 videos on your feed, baby. There are still millions and millions of people out there that might not think like you do. It like shuts off our worldview. We have blinders on because of it, which is also very dangerous. I'm going to read something I wrote because sometimes it's easier for me than to think. Sorry, I already thought. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do it twice if I don't have to. Getting accurate information takes time. Our brains can get overwhelmed constantly researching news stories. But when we forego research and time for unverified bite-sized media pieces, we feel satiated, keep scrolling, and find more bite-sized pieces. What does that lead to? Overwhelm and ignorance. Exactly what I said. Go me. There is not a world in which media literacy and mindless convenience can coexist. Hear me. There is not a world in which understanding the content you're consuming, and I'm talking about this on like a big level. I'm not talking about a haul or like a nice ASMR video to relax. I'm talking about if this is how you're getting very important information, convenience does not go hand in hand. Now, if you've done the research to find people you know do the research, that's great. But even then, check them. I'm a Christian, and I still believe you should check your pastor. Go reference your Bible. You know what I mean? I trust my pastor, but I'm still going to go back to the Word of God. And I feel like we need to do that with media. And we need to find people we trust, not because they look like us or they think like us, in order to fully have a full picture of information that we're consuming, we actually have to go to the enemy. I know you don't want to hear from people that don't think like you, but you have to in order to understand the full picture of what's going on. Trying to understand a political landscape from a 30-second video or from one content creator that also has a full-time job and does this on the side is not enough. A political landscape is so vast, and that's just one example. I mean, there's medical misinformation, there's political misinformation, there's misinformation about parenting, about science, about the way our brains work, about health, about food, about exercise. We have to be sure the information we're getting is accurate. And if you hear something that you don't know is accurate, either look it up if you care enough or disregard it. Or come up with your own opinions before you look at a comment section. By the way, the comment section is full of a lot of illiterate people. And also a lot of people that are commenting based on their own lived experience, which is not yours. You need to give your brain a chance before you look at the comments to form your own opinion, before you hive mind to everybody else's, because our brains want that, by the way. We love community. Our bodies and our brains as humans want to have likeness and sameness and peace with people. So your brain automatically, before it forms its own opinion, is going to be like, oh yeah, I get that. Very dangerous. You've got to come up with your own thoughts before you look at other people's. So what do we do? The article I've referenced below came up with 5 questions to ask every time you see a piece of media spreading information about something important. And these are very easy questions to ask yourself, okay? Number 1, who created this message? Who am I getting this message from? What creative techniques were used to attract my attention? Was it fear? A lot of it's usually fear. There's also like curiosity and humor that people can use to lure you in. How might someone understand this message differently than me? This one's very important. You might not agree with them, but you have to consider how somebody else who doesn't have your lived experience might see something differently. What values, lifestyle, and points of view are represented or omitted from this message? Who are they trying to target? Because targeting everybody is very broad. Everybody's a little bit different. Lastly, why is this message being sent? What do you think the creator of this message would like me to feel or get from what's being said or spread? I came up with my own tips on how to be more media literate, and I'm going to share them with you. Number 1, get uncomfortable. Algorithms and living among likeness. I know you only want to follow people that have your political affiliation, that think like you do, that kind of have a bias towards what you believe, that look like you, that act like you, that have a personality like you. But it's very important when we're referencing information that we get it from both sides, and that could mean anything. Just go out of your comfort zone, go out of your algorithm. Your algorithm are blinders, especially to information. I also urge you to look up a media theory called the spiral of silence. Very, very important to understand that, to understand media literacy. They are one and the same. The idea of the spiral of silence changed my life when I heard about it in college, and I highly recommend it. I talk about it all the time. That was a sidebar. Next, know that a lot of adults are illiterate. So when you're reading the comments, even if people, you like their personality and you guys have the same kind of job, doesn't mean that they're illiterate and that what they're talking about is something that they even know about. People will be so confidently wrong on the internet. Please know that you don't know these people and you don't know what kind of research they've done, where their heart's at. We want just to believe everybody, especially, again, if they have that likeness like we do. You can't do that. Not all the time. You can do it sometimes. But when it comes to very important things, dislikable people are still experts in certain things, and vice versa. I'm just saying. Lastly, hold yourself accountable. Misinformation versus disinformation. And this is where it gets scary. Misinformation is accidentally spreading the wrong information. Disinformation is spreading the wrong information on purpose. But that also means if you talk about something going on in the world that you heard about that you didn't research yourself, before you click share, before you make your own piece of content, if you are not 100% sure what you're about to say is true, you're spreading disinformation. And that's very, very dangerous. Even if at the beginning of a video you still want to make a piece of content, say, hey, I'm not an expert in this. I've done my own research, but I still do not have 100% of the picture, exactly like I did at the beginning of this video. I'm not an expert. I said it. I am not an expert in all of this. You should cross-reference me. You should go look up more sources. Very important. It's the same thing. for any sort of information you get on the internet, especially if you're a content creator or an influencer. It is your duty to make sure what you're saying is true. If it's an opinion piece, say that. If it's not, and you saw news articles, state them. I just think we live in a world where it's so easy just to be lazy about it, and it's gonna cause us more issues in the future. Thank you for watching. I have so many other topics I want to talk about. This is just how my brain works. Like, I looked into all of this for fun. I just like crave academics. I love it. I love a personal curriculum. So I want to do more of these. I also want to do more book videos, hauls, just more long form content. I love being a content creator. I'm sick of short form content, which I feel like a lot of people are kind of being disenchanted with that. And I do hope we shift back to YouTube. That would be amazing. I love YouTube. YouTube will always have a place in my heart. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.